a guy that knows a little bit about quarterback play, Drew Bledsoe, former NFL quarterback, talking about what he sees with Shedeur Sanders. This from The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
When I watch him, he's accurate. He throws with anticipation. There's a quarterback thing that I always look for if I'm watching quarterbacks. The ones that are successful, you can almost see the future, right? You have to be able to anticipate. You have to throw guys open. If you wait to see a guy open, especially as you rise to the NFL level, then you're behind and you're just not going to be successful. And I've watched that happen with some quarterbacks that had really big arm talent, but they had to wait to see somebody open before they throw the ball. Shedeur seems to be able to anticipate well. I liked watching him play in college. Again, he didn't have a ton, of help up front. He was getting hit. It's another thing that I look for. I'm always kind of suspicious when you see some of these, not always, but some of these quarterbacks that come out of the great programs, the Ohio States and Alabamas of the world, because they're out there. Their guys are better than the other guys. They're not getting hit. They're throwing to open guys. Most guys should be able to do that. But when you watch a guy that's getting hit repeatedly and still popping up and making the plays for you, that's something that is a quality that's hard to learn if you can learn it. And he got his ass knocked off in college and still continued to battle and play well. So, I believe he's going to have some success, at some point, whether it's this year, next year, whenever that happens.
And again, you always want to hear a guy that's played the position at a high level and what he sees in a potential rookie. And those are things that if you tell me he can throw people open and can take hits, those are two hugely important qualities for an NFL quarterback. We got to see it, though.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the thing with all these guys. We got to see how it plays out, with OTAs, mandatory minicamp, training camp, preseason, all those sorts of things. But what Drew Bledsoe, I think, was definitely talking about are two things that really stand out in the NFL is, how tough you are, how physically and mentally tough you are, because quarterbacks are going to take hits. They're going to get injured at some point. It's just the nature of the game. No offensive line is going to protect a quarterback for long enough to have a quarterback just stand there all day and make a throw. So I think with Shedeur, with any quarterback, you're kind of looking for what I think Drew Bledsoe was talking about is separators. How can you see something that opens up that in a defense where you're throwing a guy open into a space where they're not necessarily anticipating a ball going. If you can be just one step ahead of a defense at any given time, I think that's where, as a quarterback, you really have a chance to be successful. And Drew Bledsoe, obviously, he's a guy who's done it before. He's the former number one overall pick, took his Patriots team to a Super Bowl, and he's certainly had plenty of success in the NFL. So certainly you trust those guys who have had that kind of success to see something in a guy like Shedeur. And that's a pretty good endorsement in Shedeur's corner. So like I've talked so much, in the draft cycle just about the intangibles with Shedeur that maybe there wasn't that sexiness to his game that Cam Ward certainly had. But I think it was those things you couldn't necessarily quantify when you watch him that I think made him a prospect that I think should not have been taken nearly as late as he was. Certainly, he should have the worst been, I think, a top 50 prospect.